Starting your recording.
Okay. Sounds good.
That's great. You're ready to go.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for attending. Hello, everyone. I look forward to doing this demonstration for you guys. This is a project very near and dear to me. I coordinate this project for a couple different wood turning, woodworking guilds here in Canada. I have made a charity fund PayPal account, which will help pay for wood and materials. So when I make these, it will help pay for materials. So friends, family, colleagues, members of the different woodworking guilds that I'm part of, anyone who is willing and able to turn a wig stand can come to me, and I make up wig stand kits. I can leave them on my doorstep. Those who want to make them, pick them up, turn them. When they're turned, drop them off back at my doorstep, and I will happily deliver them to a local cancer support center. So that's a little bit about the cause. I do hear there are many wood turning guilds around the world who do this project as well. I'm very happy to hear that. And some who have had sparked interest from some of the talks and presentations that I've done to several different clubs and guilds, Zoom clubs that I'm a part of that are from around the world. So first off, I'll start talking about the materials that we use and the dimensions, prepping and prepping your materials. Well, first off, I'll talk about the demonstration. In this demonstration, I will cover the prepping your material, the dimensions of the material, the techniques that I use in turning this project. I will also talk about the assembly at the end in finishing options, because we want it to be waterproof or water resistance to help the moisture from getting into the timber. Okay. So start off, I'll talk about the blanks. The blanks I use, the dimensions I use are, I'll just switch cameras here. Actually, before I do that, I'll show a few examples of wig stands. I have a couple examples here. You can turn them out of any hardwoods, softwoods, scrap woods you may have lying around. If you don't have solid pieces, you can laminate them together. Make it a color contrast. You can also decorate them by painting them, wood burning them, however you see fit. This one is made out of ash. It's dished out in the bottom so people can put their watches, jewelry, rings, earrings, necklaces in the dish while they're sleeping, before they get in the shower or before they wash and clean their wig stand. They can also be hat stands, but for the purpose of this project, they are wig stands. This one is made out of ash. Again, this one is made out of ash, but I made it two-tone. So ash base, ash top, and a cherry stem. Both of these, this one is made out of cherry. Base, top, and spindle is cherry. And this one is cherry top and bottom with an ash spindle. It's a great project. It covers all aspects of wood turning, because on the base, we're basically turning a square blank round, the beginning of a bowl. On the bottom, we make a mortise. We turn it around. The inside is bowl turning techniques. And then on the top, we turn the outside profile of a bowl. We make a tenon. We then dish out the inside, which is all the aspects of bowl turning again. In the middle, it's all spindle turning techniques. And it's a really good project because you also get to use your calipers finesse and try to get really nice, precise connections where the spindle meets the top and the base. So it's a really good project, covers all aspects of wood turning, great practice project. I'll be turning the base and the top with a 3/8 Irish grind bowl gouge. The angle of that bevel is 60 degrees. The spindle, I'm roughing it out with a tool to create my tenons, and I will shape the spindle. I will shape the spindle with a skew. My skew, the cutting angle is 70 degrees and the bevel angle is 40 degrees. I will talk about that more when I show the tools and how I use them. Okay? So now we'll talk about your material. Here, I'll switch cameras. Here's our material. So first off, I go to the lumber yard. I get a piece of rough cut lumber, 2 inches thick. I then cut that blank into the bases of your wig stands can be anywhere between 5 inches and 7 inches diameter. You want a wider base because you want it to be stable on your table and not be top heavy when a wet wig is put on your wig stand. Your top, or the mushroom top of your wig stand, I cut to 5 by 5. Again, it's 2 inches thick. The size of the mushroom top of your wig stand is anywhere between 3-inch and 5-inch diameter. 3-inch diameter will be for children, teenagers. 5-inch diameter will be for adults, okay? And they are needed and used for all age levels. Cancer does not discriminate against age, okay? The spindle is cut to a 2 by 2 square, 11 inches long. So your overall height of your assembled wig stand is anywhere between 12 and 15 inches tall. Okay. Any questions so far?
Not yet.
Okay. First thing we need to do when we prep our blank is we need to find our centers. So what I do is I use a center finder and I put it on all 4 corners just in case my stock is not perfectly square. You can see this piece is not exactly perfectly square. So I split the difference and I know that that is dead center. I do that to both sides. Okay. We also need to do that to your base, but I don't need to bore you with doing the same thing twice. So I would do it on the spindle as well, all 4 corners, find my centers. And then I have my blanks here that have all my centers found. I find my centers on all 4 corners just to make sure I find dead center, just in case the blank is not perfectly square. And I have done that on both sides. I then take my blank to the drill press and I drill 1.25 inch hole with an 1.25 inch Forstner bit. Today I'm using a spigot chuck jaws on my Talon one-way chuck. So the outer diameter of the jaws of this chuck are 1 1/8 inches. So I drill the hole 1.25 inches, allowing me enough space to put this on the spigot and expand those jaws so I can do the outside profile of my base and the outside profile of my lid. I found the center on the other point so I can bring up the tailstock and center point with concern, because when you can, it's a good idea to use the tailstock for support to hold the piece of wood where it needs to be and where it needs to stay. Okay. Okay, those were our blanks. That's how we prep our blanks. I'll talk about mounting our blanks in a second. I just need to talk about safety for one quick second here. So safety, when I'm in my shop alone, turning, my wife works all day and I would be devastated if she ever came home and found me injured in any way. So when I'm turning at home alone, I always wear my UVEX face shield. It has a really good impact resistance. You never know if there's a bark inclusion. You always want to check your material for cracks before you start. Life's too short to turn cracked wood. If you do turn cracked wood, stabilize it some way. Please stabilize it some way, because the centrifugal force can pull that crack apart, and then you have birdwood flying through the air, okay? Another thing I wear, my shop is in the basement of my house. It's framed a third of my basement into my wood turning studio. So it's a small confined space. So one thing I recommend, and I always wear again when I'm in my shop working alone, is my N95 dust mask. All the time I'm in a confined space, I wear this when I'm working, especially when sanding. But today during the demo, I will not be wearing these because my voice will be quite muffled, echo, and it might be a little difficult to understand what I'm saying with my Canadian accent, I guess. Okay, so take your precautions, be safe, happy turning.
Kate, I have a question from somebody on the chat. They want to
Yes.
know what the PayPal account is, for a donation.
Okay, here I can add that in right now. It's pal.me. I have it copied here. I'll just get it right into this meeting here. I had it already in my clipboard. Here it is right here. You can click PayPal account. You can still donate to the cause. And like I said, all donations go strictly to wood for the cause, as we don't charge cancer patients and the cancer foundations for their wig stands. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Another thing about safety, you can see I'm not wearing my big gold chain that hangs down. I'm not wearing rings. I'm not wearing a watch. If I have long hair, it's in a hat or a ponytail. Another thing I recommend is earplugs. Wood turners go deaf, especially in their left ear, due to the sound of the lathe motor and the chatter of the tool hitting the wood. So when I like my hearing, I wear earplugs. I will still be able to hear you guys ask questions and interact in the video, okay? Last thing, I don't recommend wearing flip-flops or shoes, or well, flip-flops or open-toe shoes, because even if this small piece of wood fell off your bedway of your lathe, these sharp corners pieces dropping from 1.5 feet. Bones in your feet are very small and brittle. They can break if you have sharp, heavy pieces of wood fall on them. So I recommend wearing bare minimum work boots, if not steel toe work boots, if you're doing a large item, okay? That's it for safety. Now we can make a mess. I'll mount the blanks and we can make a mess. First off, I'm going to start with my base. So my base is larger. This piece is 6 by 6 by 2 inches thick. You can cut these corners off if you like on your bandsaw. I just find it's just as quick to turn them off as you can cut them off. and cutting corners on your bandsaw will wear one side of that blade. So then when you go to resaw that wood, your blade will be tracking all over the place. So I just take my square stock, turn it round, and then go from there. First thing we want to do, stick it in the spigot. We can use finger in the very center point to hold it dead center, giving the pressure dead center of that Forstner bit hole, making sure that it registers properly in the jaws of that chuck. I will now expand my chuck to give me a light grip. I then bring up my tailstock for support, lock it in place, turn the quill. Now I know this is perfectly flat, mounted, square in my chuck jaws. Now I can tighten my chuck. Your chuck has 2 holes. You always want to go and tighten each hole a couple times. I usually do 4 times, so 2 passes on each hole, and that's an ample hold to keep it where it needs to be. The whole process during turning this piece, I will have tailstock support. The only time I remove my tailstock support is when I create my mortise. So I can flip it around and do the inside, okay? So let's get started. We'll make a mess. When I set up my tool rest, I always set up my tool rest at a 40. You always want, we don't want this piece of wood to hit your tool rest. If it hits your tool rest, this wood can become airborne. It can also break and bend your tool rest or damage your banjo as well. Another thing is you want to turn the speed of the lathe down, just in case you forgot something, it's not quite secured properly, seated in the chuck properly, your tool rest isn't out of the way properly. Turn the speed of the lathe down and start the lathe slowly. That way there's less risk if it did hit your tool rest. If it did come out of the chuck, it would hit the floor rather than hit the ceiling. Here is my Irish grind bowl gouge. I have 2 of them sharpened so I don't have to go to the grinder. It has a 60-degree bevel angle that sweeps back to 120 degrees. I have a micro bevel to take that very sharp corner off. So as I come across the bottom of a bowl, I don't leave tool marks from that sharp corner riding behind my bevel, okay? I am not. I will be wearing bare minimum safety glasses. Perfect. All right. Have our tool rest set up. Our tool rest is below center because we're turning with a gouge. So we are cutting at center. Oh, you see it spun that way? The job I was doing yesterday, I was running in reverse. So I need to flip that back to forward rotation. Okay, we've started the lathe. We're at a slow speed. We don't hear a crack, a wobble. It didn't hit our tool rest. It's safe and securely mounted on the lathe between centers. Now we're safe enough to ramp up the speed to a safe speed. Now a safe speed would be a speed that your lathe is not shaking and walking across the floor as you're turning. That will also cause more vibration to your tool, which can give it a chance to go into the wood unexpectedly and giving you a catch, okay? when I hold this tool, I anchor the tool to the tool rest, I anchor the tool to my body, and I do what they call is the wood turner dance. It's a lot safer because if I have my arms out here like this all day, my arms will get exhausted. I'll be fatigued by the end of the day. And when you get fatigued, you get tired, you make mistakes, and that's when accidents happen. So if you anchor the tool handle to your body, use your legs, it's a far larger muscle group. It can withstand that full day of repetition and work. You won't get fatigued as fast, and that will be less likely to cause an accident, because when we get tired and fatigued, accidents can happen. Okay, I just wanted to show that there. So this is the flute. When I'm referring the flute, this is what I'm referring to. Straight up and down, my flute is open. Perpendicular to my bedway, my flute is closed. If I say 45, it's at a 45 degree. Okay? So my degree in the direction I'm cutting. Line up the bevel, enter the cut, ride the bevel down, and just knock as we go. Now we can see my tool is overhanging quite far, and I'm getting vibration, so we want to move our tool rest closer to the wood. It's okay to move our tool rest, but shut the lathe off first. You don't want this spinning, move this into the corner, come around, hit the wood, and you have airborne wood. Okay? Check, safe to start again. Anchor, line up your bevel, 45 degree, direction you're cutting, enter the cut. I'm taking about 1/8 of an inch cut at a time. And right now, all I'm doing is making the blank round. I'm not worried about, I'm rough shaping it. So I'm not worried about my final pass or my finishing touch just yet. The wood I'm using today is cherry. See, that can happen. The lathe was off, I moved my tool rest, it hit this corner. If my lathe was running, that could have sent the wood airborne and it could have damaged my lathe. Just a little bit further to go, we'll be round, and then we can start thinking about the design, the shape that we want to create. Coming across, nice and easy, let the tool do the cutting. You don't need to force it. And you also want to slow down. I can have a good feed rate, a slow entry, a good feed rate across the timber, but when I come to that exit point, I don't want to blow through that edge because I'll get tear out on the rim of my base of my wig stand. So you want to slow down as you exit that cut. That way you won't get the tear out. Okay. The finish is, keep in mind these are sharp corners. So you got to keep in mind that you don't want to touch those with your hand. And sometimes if you have a dull tool and you're forcing the cut, if you slip, your hand will fall into that sharp edge. So what you want to do is soften those edges ever so slightly, just in case. Now I need to flatten the bottom, so I have a flat square surface that I can then put my mortise into. If I don't flatten this surface first, my tool will bounce all over the place when I try and enter in to make that mortise. Okay? And you can do that two ways, depending on your confidence level or your skill level. You can do it this way with your flute closed in a scraping action. The only thing is, scraping will cause more sanding. It will also dull your tool a lot quicker. And also flip it this way. Ride the bevel and do a cutting action. Cutting versus scraping. Cutting, you'll have far less sanding, a better finish. I want to move my tool rest closer here because I have too much overhang, gives me vibration, which can potentially give you a bad cut or a catch. Okay. Also, this surface on the base, I'm making slightly concave because I want the base to sit flat. I want it to sit flat on this outer edge. I don't want to have a drunken wig stand. I want one that sits flat and functions properly. Okay, that's good enough for now. My tail. Now we can think about shaping and designing, putting some sort of design on our wig stand here. There's many different options you can do. You can do a round tire kind of shape. Shape. You can do beads with the skew here. Or you can also just do one consistent. I mean, it's endless. You can design it however you see fit. You can also use a burn wire. Here I use, might be a better view here. Yeah. You can use a burn wire to decorate your wig stand. Okay. And you can also decorate it however you see fit. You can wood burn it, color it, paint it, texture it, whatever you like. I mean, your imagination is endless. Play with the design. Have fun. So today I'm going to do a concave shape. I could put a couple burn lines in there. We'll see. I usually make these on the fly and I come up with the design on the fly. So we'll see what we get out of this piece. So I'm going to do a concave shape. I'll do a couple burn lines, maybe a bead at the bottom so we can see all three techniques or variations of things you can do. I do all this first before I remove my tailstock support to create my spigot. And I'm using a bowl gouge. Something's shaking. There we go. So we want to cut downhill. So we can start at this corner. Stop because we don't want to go back uphill. We start at this corner, enter, and blend the bottom. The vibration I'm getting is probably because this surface here isn't quite square just yet, like this surface on the bottom. So I want to make this surface flat and square so I have a reference to where my points converge to create that convex. So you can do it in the scraping action I showed before, where your flute is closed. You can fit maybe a business card between the top blade. Scrape. You can turn the tool this way, ride the bevel, and cut towards the center. Since I did that, I now have sharp corners again. I want to soften those corners so I don't cut myself. Okay. Now I just want to clean up the bottom of that concave and get my connections at the corners where the corners connect to the concave. The bevel, and I'm swinging my body. You fall off and you miss the cut. I bevel before it, pick up the cut, and you cut right through that speed bump that you fell off of. Let's take a peek. Pretty good. Okay.
Okay, David Leader would like to see you do the burn lines.
Okay. I'll do some burn lines. I'll do a bead down here. It'll be a jumble of all three. At this point, I would then sand the surface. You can do a shear cut to clean up some of this end grain. And to do a shear cut, you drop your handle. To do a shear cut, when I was cutting, my handle was flat or slightly angled upwards. When you do a shearing cut, your handle is going to be down. You're going to be shearing across the top. Just like this. You have that angle at a 45-degree angle, similar, or, well, not at a 45-degree angle. You have the angle of the straight side of your bowl gouge at a skew-styled angle. That is what gives you these fine, fine angel hair pasta primavera cuts. And that's what gives you a really nice finish and cleans up that tear out so you have less sanding. No one likes sanding. I'm yet to find someone who likes sanding. The moment I do, they have a full-time job. So I've shear scraped here and here. I just need to blend the bottom. Okay, that's sufficient. At this point, I would then sand. But when you're sanding, you want to remove your tool rest because you don't want any chance of your fingers getting caught in between the wood and the steel. The wood will burn, the steel will cut. Okay? For the purpose of a demo, I'm not going to be sanding the piece. It will save my electronics, and I don't want people to fall asleep sanding. Okay, so now when I make lines for burn lines, I usually try and make it somewhat symmetrical, and I find that an odd number looks better than more aesthetic. Do is, if you really want to be precise and get these exactly a 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch apart, you can measure it. I don't really measure it. And if there is a slight variation in them, it's not really a big deal to me. It adds character. I find the consumer won't know the difference. Yeah. they'll appreciate it anyway, really. So I can do some here where I'll map them out, and the rest of them I'll do just by eye. And an odd number is more aesthetically pleasing than a even number. So here I'm going to first enter with my skew. And with the skew, you want to be cutting above center, not below center. It's at about, if this were a clock face, with a skew, you're cutting at about 11 o'clock. Okay. I'm going to be using the toe of my skew. There's the heel of my skew. My skew has a slight radius. The cutting angle is 70 degrees here, and the bevel angle on either side is 40 degrees. Okay? So I lie the tool flat, I enter with the toe and just lift the handle. Again, lift the handle, and my third line, lift the handle. That's about 1/8 of an inch in between each. Then I'll do another one here. For an asymmetrical pattern, and right here I'll do a small little bead. Okay? Now what I would do at this point is, of course, shut the lathe off, move my tool rest. I want to take a little bit of that fuzz off. That's all the sanding I'll be doing. Okay. Now with your burn lines, I use an old guitar string. You can use hanger wire, you can use guitar string. You can also use Formica cards, where you take the Formica card, cut it to a point, hold it on your lathe tool rest, and it will burn the line in. I find this way with a Formica piece, it's a lot safer than using a wire. But if you are going to use a wire, take the proper precautions. Wrap it around 2 dowels. Never wrap this wire around your fingers, your hands, because if it catches in the wood, you're going to lose a finger. Okay? So I turn the lathe on, I hold this out tight, and I'm going to, with the lathe running, I'm going to drop it into the little V groove that my skew had created for me. If I didn't do that with the skew, this would then skate all over the surface and muck up my nicely finished, shear cut, sanded surface that took me so long to finish. For this, and with the smoke, I would also be wearing my N95 mask. One in the middle will be a bead. Now I just burned with this wire. This wire heated up to a temperature that burned the wood. This is now piping hot. I don't want to just throw this on my table where shavings might be, drop it on the floor in a bed of shavings, because it could potentially cause a fire. I want to put it in a safe area where that will not happen. Doing that burn line also cleans up some of the fuzz that was caused by the skew. Anything left, you can touch lightly with sandpaper. Now here I'm going to do a small bead. And I'm going to do this bead. That's my V cut. Now I want to create a bead, so I'm going to ride my bevel here. Come up and around that corner. Curve up and around. There. And I will do the exact same over here. Ride my bevel, curve up, and around that corner. There. It's not bad. I need to clean up this area where I first initially entered the cut. I was at the wrong angle and it jumped on me. I'll just clean up that surface, coming across, cutting with the heel, up and around that corner. There we go. Do the same here. Perfect. That's good enough. I would normally make some sort of symmetrical design. I have a little bit, I want a nice precise connection. I'm going to use my toe. There. 2 points for, or very little. Sandpaper would get the rest. If you have a problematic area, sandpaper is still a cutting tool. It just creates a lot of dust. I would then clean up that surface.
Cade,
Yeah.
Cade,
And that's the outside profile of.
Cade, Peter suggested the low E string, the wider string for bold lines, and a D string for finer lines. So you just have to find a guitar to take the strings off of. And Clive said, thanks for the heads up on the guitar strings. I've often wondered whether to use the single strand wire or the lower note ones that have a coil round around the finer wire.
Yeah, this one here I think is hanging wire. So you can see it's fine, fine braided. Well, you can't see right now here.
It's too close. Yep.
This is the braided wire you would buy for hanging your picture frames. You can also use, like David Leader said, that's a great point. You can use the thicker guitar strings for thicker lines and the finer guitar strings for finer lines. And you can decorate it with different thicknesses of lines too. Thanks, David. So we have the outside surface cut, burned, a bead, shear cut, sanded, finished. Now we can remove our tailstock and we can recreate our mortise that will go on the bottom so we can hold it in the chuck. Okay. Now here I'll switch to this camera. Nope, this one has a mixture of the two. So I'm going to be using the parting tool. Well, first I'm going to get rid of this little nib here. And I'm going to do that with my bowl gouge, my Irish grind bowl gouge. Once I do that, I'll take out some of these vibration marks I have. And then I'll enter with my parting tool. I'm going to ride the bevel across the face, taking that nub out. You can go across at a good consistent speed, but as you get closer to that center line, the lathe, the wood is spinning at a slower speed than that outer diameter. The the wider the bowl gets, the outer edge is spinning at a faster RPM than the very center. So you need to slow down as you come across to take that nib out. Okay. And I'll take it in 2 cuts. If I am too fast and too aggressive, as I come across, I'm going to break that fiber out and I'm going to have an innie belly button. If I leave it, I'm going to have to surround. If I leave that innie belly button, I'm going to have to sand the surrounding area down to the bottom of that hole. If I come across and I continue to move my handle towards me, I'm going to have a outie belly button, where I would have to sand that outie belly button to the surrounding area. So it's a lot easier to sand a outie down to the surrounding area rather than an innie sand the surrounding area down to the bottom of that hole. Slowing down, I'm cutting with that bottom wing, line that up with the center point, and you get rid of that little innie or outie problematic area. As for my parting tool is a diamond style parting tool. It has your standard parting tool. When you're using the parting tool, you're cutting at center. Always remember to remove your tailstock, because you don't want this elbow to kiss that nicely pointed live center. It's not so funny when it hits your funny bone. Line it up with center and just go straight in. Now I'm going in about 1/8 of an inch. You can go deeper, you can go shallower. You can get away with a 1/16 if you have no problems or catches on the inside of this bowl. I find 1/8 is a happy medium, so I can really aggressively hog out the inside of this wig stand and pump them out quickly. You can also do a 3/8 of an inch. There, I started with my parting tool flat. I cascaded across and use it at a skewed angle like a skew to clean up that surface. Now I can come across with my bowl gouge. A really nice finesse clean up that area so I have very little sanding, if any. That's pretty good. At this point, I would remove the tool rest, lightly sand this area. When I'm sanding, I usually slow down the speed of my lathe, anywhere between 300 and 500. Any faster, I find it removes a really good amount of material at that speed. At a higher speed, it looks like you're removing more material, but really, honestly and truly, it's just throwing that dust in your face. So you don't have to sand at a high speed. Another rule of thumb I tend to say to my students is, if you're sanding and your fingers are burning, 1, you're either pushing too hard, 2, the lathe speed is too fast. Okay. At that point, I like creating a little decorative lines on the bottom of my wig stand. So for instance here, I do some decorative lines which really frames in the way I sign my wig stands. I always label it with the species. I sign my name, and then I sign which club it is coming from. Donated on behalf of this club. So this wig stand is made and donated on behalf of the Durham Woodworking Club. Okay, and I do that with the skew. You can either do it with the skew or you can do it with a point tool. I don't have a point tool, so I've also done it with a awl after all. Okay. Need to set up our tool rest. If I'm going to do it with a skew, I lie the skew flat on my tool rest, and I'm doing it with the very point of my toe. And I angle it so when I enter into the wood, I have equal spacing here as I do here, gives me an equal V cut on both sides of that cut. Lie it flat here. You can also map it out. You can draw the lines. I always eyeball it. Flat with the skew, I enter, gives you a really nice V cut. Here, I'll switch to this view. You can see a little better. I'll do that again. Lie it flat. Align it where you want it. Enter with the point. You have a perfect V cut. You can also do it with your point tool or your awl. If I'm doing it with my awl, I need to raise my tool rest slightly. I would lie this flat on the tool rest, enter in the point. Number of lines looks best. Okay. Now we're done. Now we have that all nicely done. I would then touch that with the sandpaper lightly, get rid of any fuzz. And that's that. We're done the base. The only thing we need to do now is to do the inside of the base. But rather than switch chucks back to do the top, I do the bottom of the base, I do the bottom of the top, then I switch chucks, I do the inside of the base, the inside of the top, and then I switch to my spur drive to do the spindle. If I were to switch chucks back, this project would take me double the amount of time. But when I'm making these, I usually do them in a production. So I'll turn a whole bunch of these in the morning with a whole bunch of matching tops. I will come back, I will switch chucks. I will then take the top off the top and I'll do the inside of both and I'll do the spindle. You'll understand what I meant when I get there. I'll explain it better. Okay, so now we switch to our other blank and we're going to do the top. Again, I hold this in place. I expand my chuck to get a good, fairly snug fit, which just really aligns this with the chuck. One thing I always say about the chuck key, my hand stays on the chuck key. It's in the chuck, it's out of the chuck, it's back on my table. You don't want to leave your chuck key in there, get distracted, go do something, come back, forget that that's there, start your lathe. Because if this comes around and hits your tool rest, it's going to damage your tool rest. It's also going to damage your chuck and your chuck key. And also this could go flying through the air like an anti-tank round. You don't want that. And on the chuck key, if it's in the chuck, it never leaves the chuck key. Bring up down my quill stock, bring up the quill for pressure so I know that it's bottomed out. Now I tighten my chuck.
So Kate, I have a few comments in the chat. Brian Sinclair said he uses the Easy Wood mini detailer to cut grooves for his burn lines rather than a skew. He leaves a round bottom which fits a round wire better. And said an odd number of lines look best, just like serving cheese or chocolates. And Richard Bauer says also true of putting plants in the garden. Yeah, same as. And Greg McAteer says, and partners too.
And partners too, sorry?
And partners too.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Glenn Dornack said, will this demo be available for future viewing? Because I will have to be leaving in 30 minutes.
Yes, this demonstration is being recorded. And all attendees, anybody who has registered and signed up, will get a copy of this demonstration. And they will have access to this demo for 2 weeks. They can watch it as many times as they please. You can go to the lathe, start the project. If you miss something, go back to your computer, watch the demo, and then go back to your lathe and continue. Yep.
Great. Carry on.
All righty. Thanks.
Hello, excuse me. This is
Yes.
Art. I'm
Hello,
having a
Art.
problem with the audio and the frame. It completely stops every so often. Anybody else having that problem?
Yes, me too.
Yeah,
I am also.
Yeah, it is cutting out a
Yeah.
bit.
And
at
this is
the-
an
at
issue
times.
from his,
It's just
It
an
cuts out and
internet.
we lose what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
periodically
Oh.
we're having bandwidth issues coming from you, Cade.
Okay, it might be. I have been scrambling to try and problem solve that. Bell has actually been in my neighborhood for probably 3 weeks, and they're running new 5 lines everywhere. So I think it might be attributed to that and all the work they're doing daily for the past 2 weeks. But I'm sorry about that. I hope that will fix
Are you on
itself.
Bell now?
Yeah, I'm on Bell, and
And
I'm
you're
on
running it-
Bell 5, and I have the highest internet package and transfer rate.
Unfortunately, it's still only 56K.
Pardon?
I think if you did a speed test, you'll find it's come out a little bit over 56K. It's unfortunate. I left Bell because of it.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay,
went to
thanks for
Rogers.
that.
Now they put 5 in up here, and now they want me back, and I'm not going back.
No. I wonder, because I mean, in my first few demos and well, the first probably 5 demos or so, I didn't have any problems. But once they started digging up all these spots around my house and running cables, I've had the odd.
I think it's more likely there's so many people at home using the internet. That's what it is.
It could be that too. Everyone's locked up and nothing else to
Exactly.
do. So
Yeah,
they're watching Amazon
Okay.
Prime and Netflix, and they're all playing on their
Exactly.
tablets. It could also be the Zoom gods if they're having Zoom meetings.
The unnecessary ones.
Yeah.
just carry on. We'll
Kate,
fill in the
I
blanks.
Kate, I have a question. I have something from Michael Stratton. He
Okay.
said, what would Kate suggest the best way to drill the blank to 1 1/4 inch hole if people don't have a drill press?
Pardon?
And-
You cut out there for a sec.
Oh, sorry. Michael Stratton said, what would Kate suggest the best way to drill the blank to 1 1/4 inch hole if people don't have a drill press?
Um,
Put it in your tailstock.
you just have to be conscious to drill that hole straight. Yeah, you could do it with a hand drill or a Dremel. Sometimes the Dremel comes with that drill plate, and you can drill in with a Dremel. But if you don't have a drill press, I would just use a hand drill. But the thing I would do is and hold on to this and strong arm it while you drill into that hole, because if that Forstner bit bites, these sharp four corners are going to make mincemeat of your hand. So take this piece, clamp it to a table or to your bedway or somewhere, clamp it somewhere secure, and then take your Forstner bit, line up the center, make sure that when you enter into the piece here, once you go past this center pin here, you want to look down the surface and make sure that when you enter, all these flat sides are entering at the exact same point, and that will ensure that you're drilling straight and not sideways.
And Ashley Howard said that don't worry, just carry on. You're doing great. Drill on the lathe is better than the press anyway.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
And Richard Bauer says, surely a Jacob's chuck in the tailstock is better.
A Jacob's chuck in the
Morris
tailstock.
Jacob's chuck in the tailstock.
You could also drill it in your tailstock, yes. The only thing you would have to do is you would have to turn, you would then have to turn this blank between centers. You would have to create either your spigot or your tenon, and then you would stick this in a chuck to hold it. And then, yes, you very well could use your Jacob's chuck in your tailstock and just tighten that quill, turn the quill to drill that hole too, dead center. You could do it that way too. Thanks.
Okay.
All righty. All right, so we'll flip back to here. So I've got this in the chuck in my spigot jaws, stuck it in the hole, brought it up snugly, brought up my live center to the center for tailstock support. Then I tighten my chuck and I tighten each hole twice to make sure it's tight enough. Line up your tool rest, 45-degree angle to that corner. Give it a spin to make sure it's not going to hit my tool rest. And when I'm making that cut, I start by cutting 1/8 of an inch here, and then my next cut 1/8 of an inch here, and here, and here. Working my way back until this is perfectly round. And then we can start shaping the bottom and creating our design however we see fit. I'm gonna have to call Bell and complain about my internet. What do you give me? What do you do for me? I'm gonna be using my bowl gouge, so I need to lower my tool rest again because I'm cutting it center. Here we go. Line up, 45-degree direction I'm cutting. Enter with cut with the bottom wing. Enter, ride the bevel, exit. Now this is the top or the mushroom cap of your wig stand. So it doesn't have to be straight like the base because we want the maximum diameter we can for the base. With the top mushroom cap, we want it to be mushroom shaped. So we can turn this exactly like the outside profile of a bowl. Enter, just move your body up and around that corner. And slow down as you exit. taking the wood off, giving it a rough shape. I now want to move my tool rest closer to keep that leverage in my favor. You always want more of the tool and tool handle on this side of the tool rest. If we have too much of this overhanging, the leverage is no longer in our favor. Came around that corner, I was taking too heavy of a cut, started to get a little bit of vibration, so I stopped and I took that cut in half. If I tried to take that cut all in one shot, it would tear out the bottom there. There we go. Now we can flatten up this surface, create our tenon. Again, you can do it with a scrape. Now I need to create my tenon. So I enter at a 45, come across, close the flute as I approach that wall. And I inch my way back until I get to that tenon size I need. Now today I'm using a stronghold chuck. So when this is closed, the inner diameter is between 2 and 7/8 and 1 and 7/8 inch and 2 and an eighth. So I usually make my inside tenon about 2 inches. That way it's a good circle. I have good contact by the full surface area of each chuck jaw, giving me your strongest hold possible. And I know that if I take a pencil and I put it right on my live center housing here, that's exactly 2 inches. Yeah, I lied, just under 2 inches. So I need to go a little bit more, and I want that to be about 2 inches. There. So this outer line, no, we'll go here. This outer line is where I want my tenon to be. And I inch my way back to that line. Enter 45, come across, close my flute. Exit with a scrape to make that surface flat. There. Now I have my tenon roughed out. Now I need to shape this to give it more of a curve, because when I make my tenon, I want this curve and then the flat and the curve of the outer surface of your lid or the top mushroom cap of your wig stand, and within it is this tenon. I want to shape this so when I remove that tenon, it goes into one consistent curve to give me a nice curved top. You want the top of your wig stand to be curved. If it's square and has sharp corners, it will stretch and misshape the crown of the wig. So you want a nice curved hemisphere, or doesn't have to be a perfect hemisphere, but a nice curved surface for the wig stand to sit on, so it doesn't stretch and get misshaped in any way. So now I'm just gonna start here, start here. I'll enter my cut here. I'll come around that corner and I want to make this perfectly round. Once I have this diameter perfectly round, I'm not going to continue to that because I want the maximum diameter. This is already a 5 by 5 by 2 blank. Okay, it can be smaller, but you want it between 3 and 5 inches. There we go. There. Now I have my tenon. I have the curve of the top. Now I'm going to use a modified bowl gouge. This is my modified bowl gouge. It has a 60-degree angle here. It's sharpened flat across the top, so I take all the wings off. This is a 1/4 inch Thompson tool bowl gouge that I modified, and I use this strictly for cutting my tenons and the feet. It gives me a perfect right angle, and it's really nice for cutting dovetails as well. I'm going to be using a straight-sided serrated chuck, so my tenon is going to be straight-sided and square at the bottom. Now, since this is a 1/4 inch bowl gouge, I want to be as close as possible so I don't have a lot of chatter going through the steel. I'm going to line up that bevel to where my tenon is. I come out, I open the flute to a 45. I enter with that bottom cut. I just come across the bottom. And out. And you want this to be a perfect right angle because we want your chuck to seat flat against this reference surface. That shoulder also gives it strength and reference to align this piece when I flip it and put it in the chuck. It's going to be just as balanced as when I took it off of this chuck. Okay? And when we create our tenon, we want our tenon to be less than 3/8 of an inch. The depth on my jaws here is a 1/2 inch. You don't want that tenon to be bottomed out on this surface. If it does, and I'm too aggressive on the inside of this bowl, or I get a catch, this being bottomed out on the bottom of this chuck gives it leverage to pop out and become airborne. So if you have a little bit of an air gap in between the wood and this metal, it acts sort of as an airbag or a cushion. So if you get a catch or you're a little too aggressive, it stays within those chuck jaws and it doesn't have leverage to pop out of the chuck. Okay. So most of my tenons are anywhere between 3/8 and a 1/16 of an inch, depending on the size of the piece and how aggressive I feel I need to cut that day. I'm not quite round down here, so rather than start up here again, I'm just going to ride the bevel, and as I come around that corner, pick up the cut. And exit that cut. Now I want to true up this surface as a reference flat surface, so when I go in, I don't have to do it later. You can do it later if you want to. I like to do it now, so I just have a visual reference from where I need to start cutting and stop cutting when I flip this piece around. That is a sharp serrated edge. So we're going to just touch that quickly. Now this surface is pretty nice. I mean, I fell off a couple times on my bevel. I'll do one more pass to clean up that surface. Up till now, I was just rough shaping it. Now that I have it perfectly round, I have my tenon mapped out. I have a good right angle for my chuck to seat up against. Now I can do a shear cut here to give me a finished surface and severely reduce my sanding. So when I'm doing a shear cut, tool rest is below center, handle is below center, and I'm coming across the surface at a skewed angle. You can start at the top and work your way down. You can also start at the base and work your way up. Any problematic areas in between, you can fix them up with your shear scrape. There, that's pretty good. Fine angel hair. I have a little line there I want to get out. That tool is starting to get dull, so I'm going to switch to a nicely new sharpened one. Now we'll get some nice curly cues. Now we have a nice finished surface.
Kate, I have a question here from Perry. It says, why not align the tool rest with the angle of the cut? And that was a few minutes ago. So if Perry wants to pop on, he can explain his question.
Why not align the tool rest with the angle?
Yeah. So Kate, as you're basically rounding it, I'm so used to just using the tool rest to follow the line I want to bring up, but I kind of noticed that you were more or less pushing your tool further away from the tool rest as you got to the edge of the bowl.
Oh, okay. From here, as I came across to here, I had
Yeah,
more
your tool rest was on it. Yeah, now you got it. But at the time you were doing a straight line, it was a long time ago now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would usually, when I'm doing a rough blank, I mean, I align it here at a right angle and I start by notching these corners off. Then I move this closer and hang here, go rest overhang on this side. So I can start here and I can come around that corner to fully shape the top or the bottom of my bowl, so to speak.
Okay.
That's sort of how I would make the cut. I probably just didn't move my tool rest just yet. And I only had one cut left. I tried to make it without moving my tool rest.
Yeah, within seconds of me typing the question, and you kind of readjusted everything and it lined up perfectly. So I was like, okay, just never mind.
Oh, okay, no worries. Yeah, and that final pass, I would have it aligned sort of at a right angle at the highest point of that curve. That would allow me to start here and come around the full curve of that bowl. But thanks for that. Good question. At that point, I would then sand this just lightly because I'm going to finish this anyway. That's good enough. Now the top of my mushroom cap is finished. We have the tenon, we've shaped it. Now we need to flip it around to do the inside. This out, and tighten your chuck. There. Now we want that center point because that's also going to help us realign this when we go to take this off. Now I can switch chucks to my bigger chuck. I lock it in place. I then loosen my chuck. Unlock your headstock, and what I do is I hold my chuck stationary and I turn the wheel here. Hold this stationary and I turn the wheel as this unthreads. Because if we hold the wheel here and we start turning our chuck, it might be off slightly and it will definitely ruin the threading on your headstock. So it's much easier, well, much safer to do it that way because then you're not going to ruin the threads on your tailstock. Okay. Now I'll switch to my stronghold. Again, I hold this in place and I turn the wheel to tighten my chuck. Okay, this is a stronghold chuck with number 2 jaws. If you don't have spigot jaws like these, if you don't have spigot jaws like these, they can fit within that recess to turn the piece like this. You can also use a jam chuck. And what I did was I just took a scrap piece of ash. Here it is here. I would put this in my stronghold chuck. I turn this to the diameter of that pinhole. This would pop on here, and that would be how I would remove this. Or also, if I didn't have the spigot jaws, that would be how I would turn this profile, or how I would hold the piece to create my spigot. Okay, so you don't always have to have a spigot jaw, a stronghold chuck, whatever chuck you have, you can use a jam chuck. And I did that because I did a couple this week. I practiced and I probably hadn't turned one in a couple weeks before. So when I drilled these holes, I drilled them to 1 inch. And 1 inch wouldn't fit on 1 1/8 inches. So I had to use a jam chuck. The second ones I did, I drilled it 1.25 inches so it would fit within my spigot jaw and be able to be held that way. So you can do it both ways. Yeah. Okay, we'll do the top first. This will be fairly quick. We'll get on to the spindle. Time are we at? 12:30. I seat that in the chuck. I reference the face of the chuck jaws to that flat reference area. I then snug this up tight. Another thing you can do is bring up your tailstock. It will align with that Forstner bit hole. Give it 1/4 turn. It holds it so it's bottomed out, referenced properly and square in the chuck, and that will hold it in place while you tighten your chuck. I find sometimes if I don't have tailstock support and I try and do it this way, but depending how long my chuck is, and if the bottom of that chuck, if the bottom of this tenon gets caught within one of these grooves on your chuck, it can slightly pop it off slightly. So by sticking it in your chuck flat on that reference, tightening it slightly, bringing up your tailstock, giving it a quarter of a turn, make sure that this is not going to move as I tighten my chuck, switching between the holes. Three and four. Now I can remove my tailstock support, and I'm going to be turning the inside just like a bowl. Line up your tool rest. Going to be cutting at center, so my tool rest is below center. There we go. Line it up, it's at center. Now it's easy to find a reference because I flattened that side for my entry. I know that this area is still irregular and not flat. It's very easy for me to come here, ride the bevel because I have a flat surface, and pick up my cut at the uneven. Again, slow down as I exit, because with this hole and no wood support on the other side, if I'm too fast, I will blow out my nicely, perfectly round Forstner bit hole. Go down, there we go. So now what I'm going to do, I want a good shoulder for my spindle to sit on. So what I tend to do here is I have a roughly 1/8 of an inch lip. And that is going to be where my spindle sits. I need to dish out the rest of this area for practice of bowl turning. For practicing bowl turning, but also I do it in the lid so I reduce some of the weight of the wig stand. So here's my 1/8 of an inch shoulder that the spindle is going to sit on. I'm going to dish out this area, leaving about the same on the rim. Okay? Just to remove a little bit of weight to the top. Now I'm just going to clean up those pencil lines. There we go. Now when we make our entry into a bowl, you want to make sure your flute is closed and make your entry. Closed, make my entry. It stays where it needs to be. Then I open my flute. Then I create the cut. If I were to have this too open and I enter my cut, it's going to skate out of the bowl and ruin our nice rim. If I have this flute closed too much, again, it's going to skate the opposite direction and it'll ruin our perfectly made hole. So that's how you prevent that. You want your flute to be perfectly closed, enter with the point, stays exactly where it needs to be. Then I anchor the tool, open the flute, it starts to cut, and I pull the handle towards me to give me that curve. Okay? Just like turning a bead, you only want to cut downhill. I don't want to come back uphill because I'll actually be going into the end grain, giving me tear out. So here we can talk about the wood grain for a sec. This is basically a side grain bowl, and this is the way the grain is running. So I cut rim to base in order to cut downhill. And you cut downhill because the fiber underneath supports the cut you're making above it. If I were to cut from the inside out, I would be going uphill and I would actually be going straight into the end grain here and here, giving me a lot of tear out. And also if I present this tool in the wrong way and I have that wing exposed too much, that wing will catch that end grain, bury itself, giving you a violent catch. So when cutting this way downhill, riding that bevel, cutting with that bottom wing severely reduces your chance of a catch, okay? And since I need to cut downhill and I'm not going to continue into the hill that's right here, I would cut that. I would take that as two different types, two different bowls and two different rims. So for instance, here's rim 1 of my bowl. I enter and I cut downhill. Here's rim number 2 of my bowl. I enter and I cut downhill. Okay. And then you blend in the bottom of that curve. So now I'm going to remove this material, and you can remove quite a bit of material because all the force here is keeping the bowl in the chuck. If I was too aggressive here, all the force on this bowl is on that outer edge that can pop it out of the chuck. Okay. So I just remove this material quickly just to give me a rough switch. And then I'll clean that up later. I have move away from me, the tool away from me to come around that corner. Now I need to come this way again, ride the bevel, pick up my cut, blend the bottom, ride the bevel, pick up my cut, blend the bottom, and that's pretty good. If we have a problematic area where we might have a little lip or a bump or a speed bump, so to speak, where those 2 points connect, you can use this tool as a scraper. Rather than going and grabbing another tool, this tool you can use for a roughing cut, a finishing cut, a shearing cut, a shear scraping cut, a peeling cut. So it's very versatile. If I'm doing a scraping cut, I'm going to be scraping with this bottom wing. And I have my flute closed and I scrape along that curve. And again, your flute is facing against whatever you're scraping. Make sure your flute is closed, because if I go in there and my flute is open like this, you're definitely going to catch that wing and bury it in end grain. Your chuck probably won't be able to hold on to this piece of wood. Okay? So I don't have any lumps and bumps in there really, but we'll say I do, so I can show you the scraping. When I hold my tool to the tool rest, you can hold it many different ways, whatever is comfortable for you. It comes down to woodturner's preference. You can hold an overhand, you can do an underhand with a thumb overhand, you can do a combination of whatever is comfortable for you. I just find for me, the best way to keep it where I want it. Okay, here my flute's closed. I pick up my light scrape at that rough transition. I just scrape ever so slightly, blending those surfaces at the very bottom of our cove. Okay, at that point, oh, one more thing I need to do while I'm here. I need to put a slight chamfer on do that because I don't want any hills or bumps on this surface which will take my spindle and pop it off kilter. You want it to sit flat against that reference and come straight out perpendicular. You don't want it to be off to one way or another because there is a slight hill when you came across that surface to make it true and flush. So what I do is I put a slight chamfer or undercut here. So the highest point of this outer edge is at that farthest point of the outer edge. So when my spindle and my top and bottom connect, they connect and sit flat against that outer edge. There's no hill in between throwing that off kilter. And I'll show you how I do that. I tend to do it in a scraping action where I just move my Ellsworth just like this. I'm going to switch to this view so you get an overhead as well. So I hold my tool my way towards the center, and that gives me a really nice chamfer on this surface here with a very sharp edge on my outer edge there. So I know when this is all put together, it's going to be sealed and sit flat on that outer edge. I suppose you could do a cutting action if you really wanted to, but you have a very small area to enter and come across, get on that bevel without skating away on you, and you don't have much material there to screw up if you skate in any way. Okay, so I find my safest bet is to just hold the tool, scrape, and go towards center. Exit, scrape, towards center. It's going to be a hidden surface anyway. It's going to be glued up against the spindle, so no one's going to see it anyway. It doesn't have to be pristine finish with a cutting action. Okay, now I'm done. Now I'm done the top crown of my, the top mushroom of my wig stand. At this point, I would lightly sand. And what you want to do is, but here and I use it as a steady to keep my hand in place. So if I catch and I push too hard, this centrifugal force is not going to throw my hand in any which way because it's anchored to my tool rest. And I do that because if I push too hard and I got thrown in this direction, my hand might touch that very sharp serrated edge, which I want to keep. It doesn't feel good. It cuts. The only good thing about it is it cuts and cauterizes at the same time, but it hurts like hell. I only did that once. Okay, now we can take this out. We'll do the exact same to the base. There's our lid. There's our top mushroom part of our wig stand. Here's the base of our wig stand. And I'm going to be using a more. Make sure you have, now instead of a tenon where you compressing the tenon, using a spigot or a mortise. The chuck goes in and expands. Now when using a mortise, you have to make sure you have enough ample amount of wood to support that expansion pressure on the timber. The end grain will be able to withstand a little bit more, but the side grain would bust out, break, and then we would have to redo our whole bottom. Okay, so if you use a mortise, you have to have ample shoulder to withstand that expansion. We're going to be safe here because I probably have 2 inches there, or 1 3/4 inches. I expand this just so it holds it in place. I then bring up my tailstock into that centered pinhole of my Forstner bit, 1/4 inch turn on my quill, and then I tighten my chuck. Now, when I just did that, I went to tighten it like a compression tenon. You got to keep in mind that we're using a mortise and it's expansion tenon. So I need to go the opposite way. Now, how tight is too tight? People ask me that all the time. If you hear a crack or a click, or when you start this and this is slightly off, it's probably too tight. And something happened within the integrity of that wood that is on that outer shoulder supporting that expansion. Okay. Those are some pretty sharp corners. And just touch those lightly. Always be conscious of these sharp corners. There. Now I have it safely and securely in the chuck. Now I can remove my tailstock. Again, we're moving it out of the way so we don't kiss our elbow on that nice pointy piece that always seems to find our elbow if you don't tend to move it. Okay, I'm still in the right place. I'm cutting at center. Have my flat surface as a reference. I can ride the bevel, pick up my cut. Again, ride my bevel, pick up from across the surface. Perfect. Now this you can have slightly concave or convex. It's all up to you and your design. I mean, this hole doesn't necessarily have to be below that outer rim. It can or it can't, it doesn't matter, it's up to your design. You just want to have a flat surface for when I make my entry to dish out the inside of my bowl, that when I enter, my tool stays where it needs to be. So when I enter, my tool stays where it needs to be. Okay? If I had an irregular surface, this would skate away on me or skate away on me because I didn't have a flat surface to reference to enter into, and or my flute wasn't perfectly closed when I made that entry. Okay? So now I just need one more pass here to clean up that skate. But it's good to see what can happen. Okay. Now I'm going to dish out the inside, same as the top. Flute closed, enter, open your flute, 45 starts to cut, push the tool in, pull your body back towards you, and we remove that material. Now we can pick up the bevel, do it again. I did that cut quite quickly because it's a rough shape. I still have enough material to do my final finishing cut. Now I can remove this material by going straight in. Now is going to be my finishing pass. So a little slower rate, a lighter cut. There we go. Now I can just blend the bottom here. A little bit of a lip, so I can do a scraping action here. Scraping with that bottom wing, blending the high side with the low sides. There we go. Just gonna come this way. Now I need to put a chamfer on this again so it sits on that outer edge. Flute closed. Come down, enter, scraping with that bottom wing until I get a sharp edge on that outer edge. There, I'm done. I would then take the surface, sand it as it sits right now. I could start and finish sanding at 220. And I use my tailstock as a support for my hand and my wrist. Now our base is done. Any questions about the top and the bottom of our wig stand?
If anybody can unmute and ask a question if they like.
Okay,
Kate?
when you were using the jam chuck, the wooden one,
Yes.
did you use glue to hold that in place?
No, I didn't glue it to hold it in place. I turned the jam chuck portion, this little nub here, I turned 1 millimeter bigger than the hole that was drilled.
Oh, okay.
That way, when I pop this on, I can use my tailstock here and my live center in that pinhole
Right.
to pop this onto my jam chuck. And as this goes over the surface, that 1 millimeter of wood will compress and be enough to hold this on the lathe.
Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you.
Any other
Kate.
questions?
Yes, Cade, it's Brian here from Peterborough. I was wondering, have you ever made the wig stands with threaded inserts so they can be taken apart for portability?
I haven't personally. I find it would be a lot of fiddling around and it's a lot easier to glue them together. If I did have a custom order for one that someone needed to travel with, I would do a threaded insert, but it's a lot quicker, easier in a production style atmosphere just to turn the piece, get your proper dimensions and connections and glue it together. But if it was a custom idea, of course, I would thread it. It's just, sometimes it's fiddling with threading. If you haven't threaded all the time or don't do it regular, you fiddle around with threading, chase your tail.
That's
But the main
true.
reason I don't is just a production style aspect. It's quicker for me to bang them out, pop them out, have the connection and glue them.
That's true. Thank you very much.
No problem. Just switch out my chuck here.
So Clive says that if the dimensions are a little wrong on the jam chuck, you can make it fit by using a piece of kitchen paper roll over the spigot to make up the slack.
Yeah. Well, if you got a little too overzealous, and you can take some paper towel, some paper, some painter's tape. I've used that as well. Put painter's tape around there, and that will give it that little millimeter or 2 millimeter more, which will give it a snug fit. You can also use hot melt glue if you want, and you go too small, or even just as a insurance premium. Just make the cavity a little deeper, put a few drops of, and it will also give you a little insurance premium to keep that in the hole. great point, thanks. All right, now we get to play with the skew. I'll just move a few things here. I need to set up my calipers. First thing I need to do is actually set up my calipers here. So my calipers are going to be set to 2 different dimensions. And those dimensions are the inner diameter and the outer diameter of this hole and the outer wall. So this caliper is set to 1 1/4 inches to the inside diameter of that hole, which is the outer diameter. Now this caliper here is set to the outer diameter. Oh wow, I preset these calipers to what I want it to be and I'm bang on. So this caliper is set to the outer diameter of that lip where we want our spindle to sit on. So we have 1/8 of an inch on either side, gives us 1/4 inch, 1 1/4 inch, 1 1/4 1.5 inches across the full diameter. Okay, and I preset those so I can hold my caliper, come down with my parting tool and get a really nice precise fit without constantly shutting down and using my vernier calipers. Okay, so that's first thing first. And I see that they fit this one right. What I want to do is I want to check to make sure they fit this one right. That way I don't have to have 2 different guesses. And pretty good. This one's maybe 1 millimeter smaller on the outer diameter, which isn't a big deal. We can creep up on that measurement. Okay. Done with these, put these aside. We grab our spindle, which we went, and we already found our centers. We have our center here and our center here. I take my awl, I find that center, I make a little pinhole. Now my awl is sharp in diameter and the pinhole on my live center. And I do that because it's not so bad across a small spindle that is only 11 inches long. But if you're doing a table leg that is 3 feet long, or a banister railing that could be 4 foot long, or a flagpole that could be 30 feet long if you have a really long lathe, I find in doing this and having those pinholes, it will easily seat and sit itself in that end as I align this side and bring up my tailstock. If I was doing a flagpole, so to speak, I would have to balance and adjust this, try and see this end as I adjust this end. It would be, you'd be chasing your tail to try and get this perfectly centered and balanced in between centers. Holds it in place for me too while I tighten down my tailstock and bring up my live center for pressure. You want enough pressure so those spur drives bite into this wood, because this spur drive is what's going to drive this piece of wood efficiently, but it's also what's going to keep this wood in between the spindles properly. I then set up my tool rest, give the piece of wood a spin, make sure you're not going to kiss your tool rest. These are relatively straight edges, so if I want a relatively straight cylindrical form, line up your tool rest with that straight edge. And then as I come across here, I'm going to have a good consistent cylinder from side to side. Now in roughing this out, you can do it many different ways. You can do it quickly with a roughing gouge. You can do it quickly with a roughing skew. It's all up to you and your preference. So first I'll show the roughing gouge. Turn the speed of the lathe down just in case this isn't perfectly centered. Start the lathe, stand off to the side, just in case. You don't want to be in that line of fire if something were to happen and come off. Also listen, is there a wobble? Is it going whoa, 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 or was there a, if so, you need to shut down, make sure that this is centered properly. If it was a, you got to make sure there's no cracks or checks in the wood. But if it's A-okay and you haven't heard any problems that might arise, you're okay to start turning. And just like any other tool, when I'm using this tool, I anchor it to the tool and I anchor it to my body. I can switch to this view here. Anchor tool to the tool rest. Anchor the tool to your hip. Ride the bevel. Not cutting. Lift the handle until it starts to cut. And then just do the turner. I'm running at a fairly slow speed at which I started the lathe, so it was safe.
Okay.
I want a nice cut, so I'll turn the speed of the lathe up.
Oh.
Obviously, the faster I go, you can see all these scallops on the overhead camera. If I go a little slower, I'll have a nicer finish with less scallops across that surface. But really what we're doing now is just using the roughing gouge to get our square stock round as fast as we can. So I'm not worried about those scallops just yet, because I still have enough material to remove before I get to my finishing touch. You can put your tool on top of the piece of wood. If it's running true, you know that the piece of wood is round. If this is bouncing around all over the place, I know I'm not quite round. So I would have to do one more. Because you don't want to get overzealous in the beginning and remove too much wood off the hop, because you can't put it back. You won't have a good connection if you remove too much material all at once. Okay.
So I've got some comments here about some people, let's see, Ashley Howard said some buy a Streb center, some hammer it on first, and the other one is, I just bought a 1-inch Streb center. This is Mike Beaton. The center,
I missed that first one.
Mike Beaton said, just bought a 1-inch Streb center. The center is spring loaded with multiple points to hold the wood. Do not have to drive the wood so hard as into a spur center. And
Okay.
Barry Teague said, would you use a Streb center instead of your 4-pin? And
Okay.
Ashley said others buy a Streb center.
Okay.
And Calvin Perry said some hammer it on first.
I don't use a stab center. That's the one with the saw-like teeth, right? The serrated side. No, I don't have one of those, and I don't tend to use one of those. I just haven't bought one yet. So I always tend to cup drive though. And my safety cup drive is one I use when I'm teaching my students finesse and tool control. This is the center I use for that. Also for production. Because with this, it's a safety cup drive. I can put those pinholes on here. It will hold it on my lathe, and then I can tighten my quill to the point where it makes contact with the cup, and then it will start driving the piece of wood. That way I can take pieces on and off the lathe and not have to shut the lathe down. But more importantly, this safety cup drive is what I use to teach my students finesse and tool control. Because if they're far too aggressive or get a catch in the spindle or the bowl, the piece of wood just spins on this cup. It's not going to get launched across the room as if it was with a spur drive. Okay? So those are the only ones I use and I have, but I do know that the Steb Center works quite well as well. Yeah. I would then at this point calipers here. Oh well, I have another pair in my pocket. Oh, that's it. They fell on the ground. Lost in the wood shavings. Here needs to be 1.5 inches. Is that what I said? No, inch. Yeah, 1.5 inches. I was right. I just second guessed myself. Sorry about that. So 1.5 inches. So we know that we still have good enough material here for our 1.5 inches. Going to go into our mortise hole. So with that, first I start off with the tenon, and it's going to be at the 1 1/4 inches. So when I'm going to make that tenon, probably 3/8 of an inch deep, right about there. That's going to be my tenon that goes into the wig stand. Okay. So what I can do to refine that is I can use my parting tool and my calipers. With the calipers, you want to take these sharp corners off your calipers, because when you buy them, these have sharp corners. And if you use them straight out of the box, and I'm riding this against the wood here as I'm cutting on this side, if these are sharp, it will catch the wood and it will launch through the air straight at me. Well, not necessarily at me, but if you're standing in the line of fire, it will be shot at you, okay? So you would want to stand off to the side, but more importantly, soften those edges, round them off, so when I'm doing this cut to the dimension I need to be, it's going to ride on the wood and it's not going to catch on the wood and go through the air, okay? So I'm going to hold this tool. Right. So I hold this tool one-handed and I anchor it under my forearm. Anchor it to the tool rest. I then hold my calipers at the back, ride along, and I come in and enter and make my cut. So here we can see that cut. Move that close. Get onto our tenon. Line this up, hold this here, and I enter. There. I'll cross that surface. It's still a little tight. A little touch up. There we go. We're perfect. Now all I need to do is bring this area the surrounding area down to that height. Doesn't have to be too finesse because again, it's going to be hidden within that mortise. And then my final pass is I cut here, but then I use my parting tool as a skew. I angle it, skew, and I come across the surface to give me a nice surface. Skew it. There. Now I do the same thing on this side. This side here. There we go, perfect. There. Now I have my connections, my tenons, which are going to go into the spigot of my piece. Now I need to make the outer diameter connection. So now we have our tenons, which are going to fit within this cavity. Now I need to bring this down to this outer diameter, and that's why I have these calipers set up to that outer diameter. Oh, here, over a little bit, there, to that outer diameter there. And I do that the exact same way. Hold it here. Enter. Down, enter with my calipers back here. And come down to the height I need to be at. I will then do that here as well. There. And I can double check it again. Pretty good. Pretty good. Yep. Now I have all my crucial measurements done. Now I think about design and what I want to do in the middle here. You can really create whatever sort of shape or design you like. What I like to do is I like to map it out so it's somewhat symmetrical. So in my pen, one of my pens that didn't make the quality control cut, so this became a shop pen. So I go from that edge where it's going to meet my base, this edge where it's going to meet my base. So I'm roughly 9 3/4. 9 3/4. So 4 1/2 plus 1/8. I know that's my dead center of my blank. Okay, so now I map my design around the very dead center of my spindle. I usually tend to do a bead or a V cut or a combination of all three. And then I have a cascaded slope that meet at one another, similar to all of these. So here's one here. Here's another one here. Another one there. And this one's really thick, but another one there. So that's sort of the focal point. The design element is always dead center for me. Sometimes I've split the difference and I have a design here and the beads are symmetrical off to equal on either side. But I mean, it's up to you. Possibilities are endless. You can create whatever design you like. It can be symmetrical or it can be asymmetrical. And if it didn't work out, that's okay. It's a design opportunity. You know best of what you were trying to do. No one else will really know. And all you have to say is, I meant to do that. Okay, so there I have a 2-inch in the center. I'm going to do a 2-inch oval bead here. And I already have my center crown of that bead. And then, sure, I can do a couple V's here. We can create a burn line somewhere as well. So that's 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. Okay, so 2-inch bead, 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch V cut, or this will be tapered. And we'll figure out what burn lines. Any questions? All right. Now we're on to the skew. So now everything I've been doing, I've been using parting tools, bowl gouges, parting tools. I might have already said that, but anyway, all the tools I've been using, I've had to cut at center so my tool rest is below center. Now we're switching to the skew and we need to be cutting above center. So my tool rest is above center. When I use this tool, I'm riding at about 11 o'clock. If this were a clock face, that's 11 o'clock. Okay. Now, first thing we want to do is we want to define these areas so we don't lose them when we clean up the surface. And we do that by making an entry cut with the toe of our skew. So this is our skew. You have a toe and a heel. The angle is 70 degrees. The bevel angle is 40 degrees. Okay, and the skew I use has a very slight radius on it. So my first entry cut will be here, enter with the toe, just lift the handle and exit. You don't want to keep your toe in the wood too long because it will heat up and it will glue and you might lose the temper out of the steel. And then I will define here where my two V beads are going to be. Now I can start with this and then I'll blend this after. Corner. I don't lie the tool flat because it's awkward to get on the corner and come around the corner. I find if I stay on that corner, it's very easy for me to manipulate this tool and come around a bead or a corner or go into a cove, so to speak. Okay? Here's the center point of our bead. So I start at my bead, I enter, I'm cutting with the toe. I come down around that corner. I'm running into that wall, so I need to remove a little bit more material. I can come up, down. I need to sharpen this. Now what I do when I sharpen this, my skew sees my grinder probably once every couple months. Other than that, I use card scraper. Lie the bevel flat, I pull the tool towards me, and I ride the bevel angle along this card, giving me a nice new surface. You can see the micro bevel that was created by the honing card. I would do that on both sides. Because you don't want to slip and send that sharp surface into my finger. I haven't done that yet. Now this is sharp again, and I'm good to go. Now I'll do the other side. Start by notching these corners off. There, so much easier with a sharp tool. Okay. Okay, now I can do another pass, match the two sides. Pretty symmetrical. Yeah, looks good on the camera too. Good thing. Now I just clean up that connection where those 2 points converge. And then I tidy up the connection with my toe, ride the bevel around that corner. Ride that bevel around into that corner. There we go, pretty good. I have a bit of a point on that center line, so I can clean that up ever so slightly. But sandpaper will also do that as well. There, now they match. Now here we can do a V groove. That'll be our center focal point. So my entry where I made that line, I enter, go down with the toe to make my entry cut. Now I leave that where it needs to be because that's going to be my finishing point. What I do is I just tilt the skew up and at the angle to enter with the toe. And I come down and I finish at that same point. Again, up, angled, finish at that point. There. Do the same over here. Line it up with my entry. 45, enter, come downhill, enter, come downhill. There we go. Now I just want to converge in the center of these points to create this sort of effect. Okay. You can make a line. If you want a visual reference, you can make a line or you can eyeball it. So I'll use the line here and I'll eyeball that one. Modified the shape a bit because I took a little too much. There we go. Now this one I'll eyeball. There. Now that looks pretty good. Now you got to keep in mind I just brought 2 hills to a very sharp serrated point. So you got to watch out for your hands there. I got to clean up the surface here. The connection. There we go. One last pass. Okay, I'm happy with that. One thing I do just to make certain, I measure this side and I make sure it lines up with that side. You can see it here. Actually, no. It can come from the bottom. So here my connection is there. Take it and my connection is the exact same. Here I have my connection here. Connection here is slightly lower than this side, so I need to adjust this side. One thing I can do now, because these corners are very sharp, is just a quick touch with the sandpaper. Another thing I want to check with my caliper is that these are both the same size. And they're perfect. That one and that one. Yep. So the only thing I need to adjust is this side here. Just a little bit deeper. And I can see this facet is longer than this one here, so I need to adjust as well. That's about where I need to be. Yeah. This might need a little bit more. There we are. Now I just need to shape this area. So what I can do there is I can ride the bevel and create a concave. By entering with my heel, cutting downhill, and then coming back again this way and cutting downhill. Oop, entered a little bit off. That's okay. I can fix that. What I did there is I had the angle a little too high here. So I caught that bottom edge and it shot me back in this way. What you want to do is you want to lie it right on that bevel and then pick up the cut at that corner just like that. Now I don't want to continue because I would be cutting uphill. So I come back this way. And I'm creeping up to my vital measurement, which is that one that we measured with the caliper. Steering clear of that corner because that's our crucial measurement. There, that's sufficient. Of course. more pass here. I'm a little far from the piece of wood. I'm getting vibration as I try and ride that bevel. I'm going to move a little bit closer. And whatever I do here, I'm going to match here. I'll take my little card scraper, do this again. Oh, my head was in the way. Sorry about that. There. And it's sharp again. I'll just clean this off a bit. Okay. There we go. That's the curly cues we like to see. Okay. Now we're going to match that to this side. Crucial connection. We don't want to touch that edge. There's the bevel, pick up the cut. There's the bevel, pick up your cut. Now this side we got a catch or two, so it's a little lower than this side, so I might as well match that side up. Just got to remember how I got that catch. The two areas where they converge. Now I can see I'm off a little bit, but it's always good to shut down and check. So I got my calipers out again, measure the middle. I double check here. I've lost a little bit more on this side, so I need to go a little skinnier here. That's no big deal. Measure about there, check it here. Pretty good, pretty close. Right here, check that over here. So this is a little thicker. This has a steeper slope. So now I want to match this side to that side and I'll be done. One more pass here, because when I came down and went uphill again slightly, I have a little bit of tear out. So I'll blend that quickly. Okay, good enough. in here. There, blend it. Shut down. Double check. Now that matches. That matches. And that matches. Now we have a symmetrical spindle turned with the skew that we will have fairly little sanding. The only really place I really need to sand is where it converges in the bottom of these valleys, because at times you're coming downhill, side grain, and then uphill, and then you have to blend the two. But
So
I
Cade,
mean,
Michael Stratton says nice tool control.
thank you.
A nice
Thanks, Michael.
compliment for you.
Thanks. It means a lot. Thanks. I was so nervous because I had so many people from all over the world coming. So I've been, well, even still, I've been practicing a lot for my December 12th demos. So for the past 3 weeks, I've been forcing myself to use the skew for spindles, ornaments, finials, pretty much anything I can. So thank you. I'm glad to hear.
So give a plug for your wood turner retreat.
Yeah, December 12th is going to be the Wood Turners Retreat, 6 Turners event, which is 6 wood turners from around the world. There's 2 from the UK, Chris Parker and Stuart Farini. There's 2 from Canada, me and Joanne Sauvignon. And there is 2 Americans. There's Todd Rains and Jeff Hornung. And each one of us are going to be doing 2 one-hour demonstrations, as well as it's going to be a social interactive event. So we're scheduled to be doing 2 interactive demonstrations. We'll all be demonstrating in the beginning. We'll have an intermission, chat time, show and tell, social. And then on the other half, we'll be demonstrating again the same demonstration. But there's 6 turners. We're each doing, there's going to be 12 demonstrations total. And when the wood turners aren't demonstrating, we're all going to be in our own room. So any attendees who attend this event, they can move freely between rooms. So if you're watching a demo and you want to pop over and see what Joanne's doing, you can pop over and watch her demo. Or if you have 2 people at the exact same time in the beginning, they're going to be at the exact same time in the afternoon. So the first round of demonstrations, you can watch 3. And then the second part of the demonstration, you can actually watch the other 3. So you're not going to miss out on any demonstrations. Also, all the demonstrations are going to be recorded. They're going to be uploaded to Vimeo and Zoom. All attendees will have a passcode and an email to view these demonstrations, I believe for 2 weeks. It might even be a month. So you can watch the demo, go give her a try. You can always reference back to the demo and continue just in case you thought you missed something. So yeah, it's going to be a fun social event. Every wood turner is going to be available for social questions, networking. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to have my 2 demonstrations already prepped and ready. But I'm going to have probably 4 or 5 projects prepped and ready. So throughout the day when I'm not demonstrating, I'll be working on a variety type of projects, and people can pop in and out of my room, learn, ask questions, and socialize. And also if I do a little survey consensus of my room, I will be able to throw something on the lathe that has the majority. So everybody can watch and learn from that. Yep.
And how do they get registered, Kate?
Everybody can register at woodturnersretreat.com. It is $20 American, which is 16 quid or 16 pounds. It's about 25 Canadian or 20 American, and you get access to the 6 turners, 12 demonstrations, social event. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
And that's December 12th. That's next Saturday, right?
Yes, that's December 12th, next Saturday. It's 8 hours, starts at 6 p.m. UK time, which is 1 p.m. Canadian time, and it will go 8 hours. We all have scheduled times that we're going to be demonstrating. And,
So can you show us what your wig stand is going to look like?
Yep, I can. Yep, so this is all done. We're all done, finished. One thing I would do lightly is I would give it a light sand. Put these safety glasses back on, just in case, you never know. So we'll say I sanded that. We don't need to bore people sanding. Take this off. So I have my base. Oh, my base. My top and my spindle. One thing I forgot to do was take this off, so I can do that quickly. That will take no time at all. I guess I got excited to get onto the spindle and play with the skew. But that'll take no time at all here.
Kate, if you did, I missed it. Did you, who is your co-host?
My co-host is my mom.
All right, she's doing a fine job.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thanks, Joaquin.
I'm
paying her well?
particularly pleased with this wig stand project because as Cade knows, I did lose my hair from chemotherapy in 2004. So I'm always pleased that Cade is supporting the wig stand.
Cut out for a
project.
second, froze. We
It's
heard up time,
inspiring.
always keen about.
Oh, I'm always keen about this wig stand project because I lost my hair in 2004 for cancer treatment. So I'm always thrilled that Cade does this and continues every year to support the Cancer Support Center.
I believe is inspiring other clubs to pick up this project and do the same thing.
Wow, it's a real traumatic thing when a woman has to lose their hair for treatment. And plus you feel you are so ill at that time as well. So it's a great support.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's very near and dear. I've had family members, friends, colleagues who have been affected by cancer. So it's an ongoing project I love to be part of. I'm glad, happy that I've been getting several emails from people from the USA and the UK, and they've been wanting to do this project. So I've been sending out the PDFs and the information to get them all started as well. So
and Cade, Michael Stratton has asked, what waterproof finish do you put on?
yes,
and
that's a good question.
Other things, Jeffrey Schnell says, nice lathe. Tom Houston said, I can remember when I used to get just over $4 Canadian to the pound many years ago. And one more comment here. Can you use material as small as 1 3/4 inch square?
Yep, you can. Yeah, you totally can use 1 3/4 inch square. You could use 1 1/2 inch square as well. You just need to take into account how far you're going to drill, into the blank for your spindle to be glued to the top and the bottom. And then you have to keep in mind how thick or how deep your tenon is, as well as how deep you drill here to how deep you go with your spigot, because we want to have a solid base and a lid. We don't want to make a funnel. But yeah, you can always modify the measurements to use whatever stock you have. Some club members have actually used multiple pieces of wood, and they glue them up and stack them to get striped or colored contrast designs, which is quite nice as well. So it can be scrap woods that you have left over from projects. You can segment stuff, you can glue stuff together. You could really do anything to make up that size of a blank.
And Michael has asked about your waterproof finish.
Yeah, the waterproof finish, you can use a polyurethane. You can use a polyurethane, sorry. So finishes you can use. You want your wig stand to be waterproof, right? So you can use several different types of finish, but you want to save the wood from all the moisture of a wet wig stand. So what I tend to use is I would use a polyurethane, a varathane. You can also use a finish they call Rustin's plastic top coat. It's a 2-part coat, and it's waterproof, almost bulletproof, like epoxy. You could use epoxies, but epoxies would be quite messy and sticky. So I would tend to, and with all these curved surfaces and irregular concaves and convexes and shapes converging on one another, it would be tricky to get a good even flow of epoxy. So what I tend to use is either an oil finish, which I compound multiple coats until I'm happy with the shine, which gives you a waterproof finish, or a plastic type finish like polyurethane. Yeah, you could use those too. Questions? Thanks for all the comments, feedback too. Greatly appreciated. So fairly quick, all we need to do is take this off and we'll be all done. Okay,
So Mike Beaton says, I only have a 1-inch Forstner bit, so my spindle tendon is 1 inch. Finish is fast dry, POL.
Yes, you can use tongue oil. Tongue oil will work. Teak oil, walnut oil, Danish oil. The only thing with an oil finish is you'll have to do multiple coats to build up a finish, waterproof finish. Okay, a 1-inch Forstner bit, you can get away with a 1-inch Forstner bit for sure, no problem. The only thing you would have to use is the step jaws. I have some step jaws in here. Oh. No, I don't have my step jaws set up on my chuck, but you can use step jaws where it has steps, increments of steps, and the smallest one will fit within 1 inch. The spigot jaws is 1 1/8 inches, but you can also get away with turning a jam chuck. Alrighty, we'll just get this done quickly here. I've mounted this back in my spigot chuck, put it in the hole. I brought up my tailstock to that center pinhole so it references You can see it's spinning true. My thumb is not flopping all over the place. So I know that this is mounted properly in the chuck. Now I want to take this off and blend the top. And we also need to take into account the live center will go into the wood probably about 1/4 inch. So we're going to lose that tenon altogether. Okay. Now here I do a shear cut or a peeling cut to blend the two. This is a peeling cut. I was doing a shear cut. It is a shearing cut. Just to blend the two. I can now remove my tailstock. It's good to shut your lathe down because sometimes popping this off, it can take this off kilter slightly. Now we can remove this nub and then just blend the surface and tool marks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight in and straight down so I know all force is going straight into the chuck and won't pop this out of the chuck. You also need to keep in mind when we tighten that chuck now, the thickness we have here. When we first started, we had solid wood support on the outer edge. Now we've dished this out. So if we expand this and tighten this too much, it's going to break and crack through the end grain. Okay, so it's not quite as tight of a hold as it was when we did the here. I'll go straight in, straight down. Now I just have a little bit of a nub there. So I just need to blend that nub. You can come across with a cutting action, just like this. Slow down as we get to center, cutting with that bottom wing, and take out that little nib. It was a little high there on my tool rest. There. Now I can blend the tool marks. Blend all those tool marks out, blend the surface with a shear scrape. Just like that. I would then remove my tool rest. Sand my surface to a nice finished surface. Now my top is nicely done, a nice curve. Oh, yeah. Now we have a nice curve. We've taken out that pinhole. We've blended the sides to a curve. It's not square, no sharp edges, which are going to change the crown of that wig stand. Now we're ready to assemble our wig stands. Now I would assemble my wig stand. I would use any sort of wood glue. I tend to use Type On 3. You can use Type On 1, you can use Type On 2 or 3, Gorilla Glue, epoxy, anything that'll glue wood together will work. Okay, so now we have our 3 pieces. We have our base, our lid, our spindle. This started out 6 by 6 by 2. This started out 5 by 5 by 2. And this started out 2 by 2 by 11. Okay. Moment of truth. Do our connections come together right? I'm a little bit off here, so I need to blend that down slightly. I have a little. And there's your wig stand, all finished and done.
Very nice, Kate. That's
To
lovely.
glue it up, I can tell you a little trick here. When I do a glue up, what I do is rather than trying to clamp the piece, which is quite tricky to clamp a flat side and a curved side, what I do is I use elastic bands as a clamp. I go to the dollar store, I buy a I would put some tight bond glue, of course, in each hole. Doing the bottom first, put it in here, squeeze this down, wipe off any squeeze out. I would then put the glue in here, flip it and put it on top of this before it seeps out all over the place in the spindle. And then gravity will bring that glue down around this spindle to glue it and adhere it to the wig stand. And then I take my rubber bands, which I get at the dollar store. You can get them at the pound shop. And I just align all those rubber bands to converge on center. And that's exactly what keeps the proper amount of pressure for my top and base to hold the spindle together to give you that seamless connection. Yeah. And finishing, any sort of waterproof type finish will work perfectly. Any questions?
Mostly just very nice compliments.
Yeah. Yeah.
Michael is telling me that I have a very wonderful son. Brian Adams said, a very nice job. Thank you for the information. Michael said, let's see, Peter Barrick said, excellent demo and co-hosting. Thank you. Just got to persuade the club to take this on. Thank you, Cade. My information, an information-packed demo, and what a wonderful cause. And Richard Bowers said, great demo, Cade and Patricia, many thanks. It's been really interesting as usual. Hope to see you next weekend. Clive Drake, thank you very much, Cade and Patricia. Oh, I think I read that. Thanks, Cade. Very detailed and information demo. We'll be getting material together to start one soon. Thanks, Patricia. Really enjoyed the demo. Perry said, when can I get some wood to make a wig stand? I am inspired. And then I've got lots of more compliments here for you. Andrew Hall said, excellent detail and attention to safety, Cade, and superb hosting, Patricia.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
So at this time, I just invite anybody to unmute themselves and ask Cade questions directly. He'll likely stay on because there is nobody that can talk about wood turning longer than Cade.
I had to cut some stuff out or I'll keep you here all day.
I agree.
Very much, Kate. And you, Patricia.
Yes. Thank
Great
you,
job.
Barry, for coming.
Thanks, Barry. Without further ado, before anybody has to go, I'll do the quick draw for the free ticket. And then anybody who wants to hang around and ask questions and socialize can feel free.
Oh.
And if you're not here and your name is drawn, you will get an email. So don't worry about that, okay? So here I'll grab my tablet. And what I did is everybody who registered and other people who popped in during the time that I was able to add you to the list were all on this wheel to spin. Okay, everybody's name who has attended this event is on this list. I'm going to spin this, and this is going to pick the winner of a free ticket to the Woodturners Retreat 6 Turners event. Okay, here, I'll just get Martin in here quickly. Good luck, everybody.
Right.
Thank you for attending. Here we go. Wheel of Fortune.
And also, Kate, make sure you give talk about any demos you'll be doing.
Who is it? Is it me?
Clive Drake.
No, it's not me.
Clive Drake, you just won a free ticket to the Woodturners Retreat. I'll send you an email and I'll get your information into the system. And when we send out the mass invites, you will get a free invite in your email.
Well, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you as well. Thank you for attending.
Hey, Cade. Cade, don't forget my Christmas gift.
What's that?
Don't forget my Christmas gift.
Oh, no, I won't. I have them all on the list, so I don't forget. Yeah, my old age, I forget some stuff, so I got to write it all down now.
And Richard said, don't forget to donate to the paypal.me at /Wig Stands. And Cade, you might want to give yourself a plug for any demos you're going to do in January.
Right, thanks, Katie. I'm going to get going.
Yeah. Good night, Katie. Good night, Pat.
Good night.
Great job. See you.
Yeah, pleasure.
Lucky job. See you.
Anyone who
Got me
has
inspired.
questions, feel free.
Yep, got me inspired. I'm picking up 200 spindles tomorrow.
You could
Okay,
Calvin and Mike Beaton's question. I did have a donation December 3rd, so I did pick up some ash, and I'm going to be milling that up today into Wig Stand blanks. So anybody in my greater area or part of the different clubs I'm part of, or friends, family, colleagues who would like to turn a wig stand, I have materials available.
Yes, this is Glenn. To be paid instead of a ticket for the.
Yes, hello, Len.
Yes, this is Glenn. I missed part of the demo in the middle. I had to leave for a while, but I was very impressed with your demo. You're very thorough and informative. You don't see that very much in a lot of the demos or that I watch, and I really I was really liked your demo, and I think this is going to be a project because I'm in Corpus Christi, Texas, and I think we're going to try to do this as a challenge for our club too. The stand, because I went through it with my wife had well, she had passed away a number of years ago, but she had cancer and she lost her hair and she had her wigs just on little styrofoam head. But I think this is going to be a very good cause, and I think it'll be a good challenge for our club, and just thanks again.
You're welcome.
Hi, Cade. This is Art Wilkins.
Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Glad to
Hi,
hear.
this is Art Wilkins. I just want to thank you very much for the great job you did. I learned a lot, even more from before.
That's good. Glad to hear. Thanks.
Great
Art.
job.
Thank
We'll see you
you.
again soon.
For sure.
So,
Yeah.
Kate, have you got any demonstrations planned for January after the Woodturners Retreat?
My next event will be the Woodturners Retreat, December 12th, starts 6 p.m. UK time, 1 p.m. Canadian time or my time. You'll have to check the website. It is linked to whatever time zone you're from. So if you go into the website, it will tell you exactly what time it's starting where you are. And my next demo will be again in January. I have a couple more demos planned. I'll be booking for the new year. But my next demo for January, I plan on doing some sort of ornamental, decorative style box out of some form of exotic wood with different form of exotic wood color contrasting finials. And the outside profile, the finials will all be turned with the skew. The inside of the box will be turned with a Ellsworth gouge.
Sounds great. And you also send out a newsletter, right?
Oh,
have a
yes, I do
newsletter?
have a newsletter on the Turn with Kate Bolger. So anybody who is here or who attends my online demonstrations gets added to my newsletter. If you have a problem or an issue and you would not like to receive the newsletter, just send me an email or let me know that you would like to be unsubscribed from the newsletter, and that is totally fine with me. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
That's great.
Where can people go if they want to watch this show after a while?
Pardon, Richard? Sorry.
Yeah, where do the guys have to go if they want to watch this video in the next couple of weeks?
Okay, well, this afternoon I'll be downloading this video. I'll edit it, and then I will be sending out a email with a link to the actual link to watch the video. It will be in your email by the end of the day, and you'll have access to watch this video as many times as you like for a 2-week period. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Pleasure. Thank you as well.
And we do apologize about the freezing of the screen and
Yeah.
so sometimes it's beyond our capability. But I think, Kate, you should try and shut down all your notifications that are coming into your laptop.
I do. I have set everything, all notifications and everything and anything that's linked to my laptop. I've actually shut off so I don't get anything beeping and blopping up while I'm during the demo. So I don't think it's that. I think it might be something along with the Zoom gods or something along with Bell and all the work they're doing around my block. But I definitely, I'm going to call. I was talking with Lindy today and I'm like, I hope like my internet holds up and I don't have any freezing, because the last one I didn't have much. I had a couple, but I really didn't want any happening today. And if it did, I was going to definitely call Bell and complain and see what they can do for me. Because I'm on the fastest, highest speed and unlimited, so I shouldn't be having any freezing. But it could also be on Zoom's end. If it's too busy, too many people on Zoom, having family Zoom Christmases, or it seems like every other Zoom club has gone online too. So it's been quite a busy platform. But yeah, sorry about that. I hope you were still able to hear and learn something, and even just seeing it.
I don't know
Hi,
what
Kate,
happened,
it's
Kate,
Andrew.
but the link that you sent me for the Zoom, it didn't work. I had to put in the number on my Zoom to get into the meeting.
Oh no. Okay.
Yeah, no problem. As I say, I just put the oh, was it about 8 figures?
The passcode in it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, 12. There's 12 numbers. I just put those in, and then I went straight in then.
Michael, Zoom's just updated its program. It happened to me yesterday, and I updated, and everything seems to be fine now. So you might need to go into your settings and just update your Zoom.
Oh, right, okay. And
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
because it happened to me yesterday. And
Yeah.
Kate, I've found that if I turn my own camera off on the appliance, you seem to get a better signal.
On my
well.
laptop? Turn my camera
No.
off on the laptop?
No, for the receiver, for the person receiving it, if you turn that's why my picture is on my camera instead of me, because the picture is clearer and it doesn't freeze as much. Sometimes it can be a combination of both your end and our end.
Oh, okay.
And one of the advice I was given was to shut the camera down on your appliance. So obviously you can't shut yours off because we want to see you, but we can shut ours off because it's not necessary for you to see us.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You
Good
see what I
idea.
mean? And then
Yeah.
you get a better frequency coming through your broadband.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
a
I did
good
that
tip.
to
Yeah.
on my video when I don't
It's
need it. Yeah.
definitely worth a try. It's worked for me. And I had very little freezing tonight. And Kate, your attention to detail for health and safety is exemplary. Well done. Really enjoyed it. I'm
And
sorry I had
Andrew,
to pull out.
well, and before you go, Andrew, Ashley said she was one of your students and that you actually had a microphone that worked really well inside of a mask, inside of one
Right.
of the
Yes.
shield masks.
Yes.
Could you
Yes.
share that with Kate so that?
I will. Yeah. I'll email the link to
Okay.
Kate.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay.
And I'll
thank
send you a message through Messenger just to help troubleshoot me through get those settings set up for me, if we can, please. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for the feedback. I really appreciate that too, Andrew. That's great. I'm glad to
No,
hear.
great job, both of you. Great job. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Got a great mom too there, Cade. Doing a good job.
Thank you.
But you definitely inspired me. Like I said, I had sent you the link. Somebody had some crab spindles for sale. I'm picking up 200 tomorrow for $10 for 50. I thought they were all done already, and maybe I might have to make them smaller or not. But how can you go wrong, you know? And I'm going to tell everybody I know to go get out and do it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, the price is right for sure. You can't pass
I
that
know.
up, even
I
if
mean,
you
they're
use
all.
them for tool handles or something.
I know. Yep. So, and I hope we all got a business for this. I hope we never need them.
Pardon?
I
You
hope
cut
we
out
all
a
got a
bit there
business.
on your
We never
bandwidth.
need them.
Then tell his mum it's not his
Yeah.
caused.
Oh, okay. No worries.
I've got the strawberries and clotted cream dished out, ready.
Thanks, Jeff. I even busted
Right.
out my new hat for the show today. This will be my new demonstrator's hat. I had these made. Well, my fiance had them made, and she gave me an early Christmas gift because it'll be the hat I wear for all my demonstrations and classes. Has my logo on the side here.
Looks neat.
That's nice. Cool.
Thanks.
You'll have to get your mum.
Are you going to put out a PDF file on the dimensions of the wig stand?
Yes, I will. I can. Yeah, I will. Definitely, I will. I'll put one up on my Facebook page, which is Cade Bolger Woodturner. I can also upload it to my personal page, which is Cade Bolger, and I can also send it out on an email as well to all the people on my list.
Okay, Robert Elliott.
Yep.
Your microphone is with coming through all your breathing.
Oh, huh.
Yeah. Could you stop breathing there, Robert?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll hold my breath.
Patricia,
Well done,
yeah,
Katie,
those
great demo.
filters. Pardon?
Well done, Katie. Great demo. I didn't have any problems. I lost a couple of words every now and again, but I had my video off and I was just pottering around the workshop and no problem at all. There was just
it makes
an
a
odd,
difference, doesn't it?
And yeah, it makes a massive difference. Just you know, an
Yeah.
odd word where it sort of froze for a second or two, but other than that, it was good, great inspirational and information success, I think. Well done.
Great. Thanks, Martin. Glad to hear that.
Patricia, Patricia, Janet's just come in. Janet, my wife, she's been listening as well. And she said you did a great job of hosting because she hosts for me and she knows how difficult it is when you're a non-wood turner. So brilliant. Well done.
I maybe know more and more as I do more co-hosting. I learn more and more, but I do not ever know as much as Cade does. It just amazes me how much he knows and how much he loves wood turning.
We'll be watching you on the lathe next.
That's what I was going to say. We'll be an expert in no time.
No, I don't think so.
Anyhow, good night, everybody. And thanks again, Cade. Magic.
Good night, Andrew.
See you again.
Good night, Andrew.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye.
Cade said, Patricia, that you make his smocks for him on there.
Pardon me?
You make his wood turning smocks.
Yes, I
Cade.
do. Yes,
Yeah.
I do.
I was wondering, Emma, the tiny turner, she can't get a smock anywhere to fit her because she's that small.
Oh, okay.
I think you'll have to make one for her.
Oh, well, you know what the problem is right now is that it's very difficult to get the type of fabric that works best. I've been at 3 fabric stores just recently, and our shelves are getting very sparse here in Canada because of all this COVID stuff. You know, it's more difficult to get stuff.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, let her tell her to get in touch with Cade, and I might be able to make her a smock.
She's a truck driver.
Yes.
And she can't get overalls to fit her. She has to go out and buy children's trousers that fit her.
Oh no. I think she has a booster seat too, didn't she, when she was working and she joined a meeting?
In a big truck. Yeah.
Yeah, phone books. You got this big phone book fit on. But I'm surprised she doesn't use anything on her lathe. I'm surprised she got a regular lathe and doesn't have a step up or anything.
Well, that's good. She must have had it custom made to be perfect for her height. How tall is she? Like 4 or something?
Maybe 4 foot
4
10
foot
or
1,
something
I
like
think.
that. 4 foot.
4 foot
11.
2, 4 foot
Oh, is she
1.
that tall?
It's like here.
You ever see their picture with her? Was it Phil Irons? I mean, like a giant.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that. Phil's even got a foot on me, so.
Yeah.
Okay, Cade, if you take me off of, I'm going to stop your recording now.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,